39 days ago, the President of the United States posted 6 words in all capital letters: unconditional surrender. He said there would be no deal with Iran unless they gave up everything. He said he would choose their next leader. He even coined a slogan for it: make Iran great again. That was 39 days ago. Today, that the same president just signed a ceasefire on Iran's term, all 10 of them. And the most devastating part is not that he lost. It is that his own people are the ones saying it. A former head of Israeli military intelligence called it a strategic victory for Tehran. A sitting United States senator said Trump just handed Iran control of a waterway it did not even control before the war started. An American political analyst wrote 5 words that are now echoing across the internet: who won again? But here is what none of them understand. None of them. Not the senators, not the analysts, not the journalists. They are looking at these ceasefires through a wrong lens. They think this is the end of the story. They think the war is over and now we count the score. They are wrong. This is not the end. This is not even the middle. This is Hudaybiyyah. And if you do not know what that word means, then you do not understand what just happened. And you definitely do not understand what is about to happen next. So stay with me. Let me take you back 1400 years. Because what happened this week just happened before, almost identically. And the people who lived it through made it the exact same mistake that people are making right now. In the year 628, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, led over 1,000 of his followers toward the city of Makkah. They were not carrying weapons. They were carrying animals for sacrifice. They had come for pilgrimage, not for war. But the rulers of Makkah, the Quraish, blocked them. They refused to let the Muslims enter the city. Tension rose, negotiations began, and after weeks of back and forth, a treaty was signed. It was called the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah. And when the terms of that treaty were announced, many of Prophet's own companions were devastated. Some of them were furious. They looked at the agreement and said, "This is not a victory. This is a humiliation. We came all this way and we are going home without entering Makkah." One of his companions, Umar ibn Khattab, went directly to the Prophet and asked him, "Are you not truly the messenger of God?" The Prophet, "Yes." Umar asked, "Are we not upon the truth?" The Prophet said, "Yes." Umar asked, "Then why are we accepting this humiliation?" Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like the conversation happening right now? We had them on ropes. Why did we stop? Why did we agree to a ceasefire? Why didn't we finish them? The Prophet did not argue with Umar. He simply said, "I am the servant of God and I will not disobey his command." And then something extraordinary happened. On the road back to Medina, before they had ever reached home, God revealed a verse from Quran, chapter 48, Surah Al-Fath. The very first words were, "Indeed, we have given you a clear victory," not a treaty itself, not the ceasefire. God called the entire process, the journey, the standoff, the negotiation, the restraint, the return home, he called all of it a clear victory. The companions were confused. How is this a victory? We did not enter the Makkah. We did not defeat the Quraish. We signed a deal and went home. But here is what the Prophet understood that they did not. Victory is not a single event. Victory is a process. And the process has stages. The Quran itself lays out 3 distinct stages of victory. The first is Fath Mubin, the clear victory. That was Hudaybiyyah. The second is Fath Qarib, the near victory. That was the conquest of Khaybar, which happened just 20 days after the treaty was signed. And the third is Fath Mutlaq, the absolute victory. That was the conquest of Mecca itself 2 years later. And this is the critical lesson. If you only measure victory by the final stage, by the absolute conquest, every stage before it looks like a surrender. But the Prophet did not see it that way. And God did not see it that way as well. Because the Treaty of Hudaybiyyah did something that no battle could have done. It forced the enemy to recognize the Muslims as a legitimate state. For the first time, the Quraish sat across a table from the Prophet and negotiated as equals. Before Hudaybiyyah, they called him a rebel, a troublemaker, a man who divided families. After Hudaybiyyah, they called him a head of state. It created space. The moment the fighting stopped, the Prophet did not rest. Within 20 days, he marched on Khaybar and conquered it. He sent envoys to 5 kingdoms. He expanded in every direction. The pause was not a retreat. The pause was a launchpad. And it exposed the enemy's weakness. The Quraish agreed to the treaty because they were afraid. They agreed because they knew deep down that time was not on their side. Every month that passed, more people converted. More tribes joined the Muslims. The Quraysh coalition was shrinking. The treaty did not save the Muslim. The treaty saved the Quraysh temporarily. Now, look at what just happened this week and tell me this is not the same pattern. 39 days ago, the President of the United States demanded unconditional surrender. He demanded regime change. He said he would choose Iran's next leader. He launched the most expensive bombing campaign since the Iraq War. Today, he signed a ceasefire based on Iran's 10-point plan, not America's 15-point plan, Iran's plan. And let me read you what is in that plan, because the Western media is doing everything it can to bury the details. Point 1, a complete stop to all aggression against Iran and all of its resistance allies, not just Iran, all of its allies, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, all of them. Point 2, the withdrawal of American combat forces from the region and a prohibition on any attack launched from American bases against Iran. Point 3, limited passage through the Strait of Hormuz, a maximum of 50 ships per day. Iran decided who passes and who does not. Point 4, a $2 million toll on every single ship that transits the strait, split between Iran and Oman. Point 5, Iran sets the rules for safe passage. Iran writes the regulation. Iran enforces them. Point 6, the toll revenue goes to reconstruction, not reparation to America. Reconstruction of what America destroyed. Point 7, the lifting of all United States sanctions against Iran. All of them, going back to the George W. Bush administration. Point 8, the lifting of all United Nations resolutions against Iran. Point 9, Iran continues its nuclear enrichment program. Unlimited, no restrictions. Point 10, cash compensation from the United States to Iran. And now, read that list again, slowly, and see this part of the video probably twice or 3 times. The country that was supposed to surrender unconditionally just got the enemy to lift every sanction, pay compensation, withdraw its troops, and accept Iranian control over the most important shipping lane on earth. A former spokesman for the United States Department, Ned Price, wrote, "The war is apparently ending with Iran controlling and tolling the Strait of Hormuz, and with U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil lifted. If this is the new normal, we will have spent vast amounts of blood, treasure, and standing to leave the Iranian regime poised to be strategically stronger in key ways." It's strategically stronger. Those are not my words. Those are the words of a man who used to speak for the American government. Senator Chris Murphy asked on live television, even if Iran reopens the strait, how is that a good outcome? An anti-American regime is in power and emboldened. Iran still has their missiles and nuclear program. That is good? And Ron Filipkowski, one of the most followed political commentators in America, put it most simply. He shared Trump's post from just over a month ago, the one demanding unconditional surrender, and wrote, "So there is no regime change. We'll lift all the sanctions against them going back decades. They retain missile and drone capabilities. They control the strait and can charge tolls. And they keep their enriched uranium. So much for unconditional surrender." And now, here is where the shallow analysts stop. They say Iran won and America lost, and they move on to the next news cycle. But that is the materialist lens. That is the satanic narrative. It counts the score and declare a winner. The divine narrative says something much deeper. Remember what I told you about Hudaybiyyah? The companions looked at the treaty and saw compromise. God looked at the same treaty and called it a clear victory. Why? Because the victory was not in the terms of the treaty. The victory was in what the treaty made possible. The same thing's happening right now. This ceasefire is not the victory. This ceasefire is the door that the victory walks through. Think about what has already been achieved before a single word of this deal was signed. The most expensive aircraft carrier in human history retreated from the battlefield. We're going to cover this one in our next video. The psychological fortress of American naval power, the idea that no one can challenge the US Navy, that fortress is gone. It's a rubble. An American fighter jet shot down by Iran fire for the first time in over 20 years. The myth of untouchable American air superiority gone. A rescue mission was destroyed in the same Iranian desert where the empire was humiliated 46 years ago in an Operation Eagle Claw. The same aircraft, the same desert, the same result. History repeated itself because the divine sunnah, the unchanging law of how empire fall, does not forget. The petrodollar system, the financial agent that has kept the American economy dominant for 50 years, suffered a direct hit. Iran is selling oil to China in yuan. The dollar's monopoly on global energy is cracking. And now, on the top of all of that, the empire has formally agreed to pay a toll to pass through a waterway it used to patrol for free. It has agreed to withdraw its forces from the region it has occupied for generations. Congressman Jim McGovern said it best, even though he did not realize the depth of what he was saying. He wrote, "So Trump will stop bombing Iran, so Iran will reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a strait that was open before Trump started bombing Iran." Got it. He meant it as sarcasm, but read it again through the lens of divine narrative. Before the war, the Strait of Hormuz was open. America patrolled it for free. No tolls, no Iranian control, no restriction. After the war, the Strait of Hormuz is Iranian. $2 million a ship. 50 ships a day maximum. Iran writes the rules. Iran collects the money, and America pays. The empire started war to destroy Iran and ended up handing Iran the keys to the global economy. That is not a ceasefire. That is a conquest without a single soldier entering the enemy's capital. That is Hudaybiyyah. And just like Hudaybiyyah, the people who do not understand the divine pattern are confused right now. Some are celebrating too early, thinking the war is over and everything is won. Others are frustrated, thinking the resistance should have pushed further, should have demanded more, should not have agreed to stop. Both are wrong. Both are making the same mistake the companions made 1400 years ago. This is Fath Mubin, the clear victory, the first stage. The enemy has been forced to recognize in writing that it cannot defeat the resistance. It has been forced to give up the tools of economic warfare, the sanctions, the resolutions, the financial isolation that has spent decades constructing. The ceasefire is not the destination. The ceasefire is the launchpad. The sanctions are going to be lifted. The economic siege that has strangled this nation for decades is being dismantled. The military myth of American invincibility has been shattered in front of the entire world. And the resistance axis from Tehran to Beirut, to Sana'a, to Baghdad is intact. Every single lie that America demanded be abandoned is standing. The mainstream media will spend the next 2 weeks debating whether this was a win or a loss. They will argue about the terms. They will parse the language. They will miss the point entirely because they are reading a ceasefire document and we are reading a pattern that is 1400 years old. Now you understand why this ceasefire is not the end. You understand the pattern. You see the stages. But here's the question you should be asking right now. If the American empire, the most powerful military force in human history, just lost a war to drones and missiles and a $2 million toll booth, then what does that mean for every other empire watching? Why are Russia and China, who have their own massive armies and nuclear arsenals, watching this moment with absolute envy? They have the money, they have the weapons, but they are missing the one thing that allowed the resistance to stand in the desert while the empire crumbled around them. To understand the spiritual power they lack and the ancient blueprint that predicted this exact moment, click this video right here. And I'll see you in that video. And as always, welcome to the narrative of victory.